Hello, hope you're doing well, having a great day. Wanted to continue on in this vein of using generative AI in development in different ways to what everyone seems to want to talk about, which is generative AI writing code. So we've covered a whole raft of scenarios now where we've done things that don't involve writing code. So we've used MCP tooling to be able to go away and allow applications like Claude Desktop and Claude Code to go away and probe an API to understand how it works without any access to the code, without any documentation, to go away and figure out how it works. We've done a similar thing in Claude Code where we've got it to generate spec flow tests, automation tests for the same thing. Not because we necessarily want the automation tests, although it's handy that we get them for free, but essentially it allows the model to understand how the API works, find any issues with it, so they can go on and then do things to correct those issues. And it can go away and create AC for stories, but not only it can do that and go and create a manifest of all what it thinks the impacted areas are, where they are, what you might want to change it to without even making the changes. Although generative AI could also make the changes. What I want to talk about today is using generative AI as a educational tool. Um, so what I did last night, spent an hour going away, creating some MCP tooling to turn basically Claude Code into an educator. So traditionally, when say a new developer starts, say they've got no experience, you would go away, you know your code base, and you go away and provide them a curated list of assets to look at. So that might be websites, it might be YouTube videos, it might be Pluralsight, curated Pluralsight list. And then ideally what you do is you'd sit with them for half an hour. And the key thing with code is not understanding your implementation, is make sure somebody new understands the constructs, the principles behind how the thing they're doing, so that they'll know how to wire it up, so they'll know where to look, so they'll know what a compiler error means because they understand the methodology behind it. And we've seen a lot of bad press recently about people who haven't really been doing much with generative AI for more than a few hours and they'll write it off. Or we had the Replit thing a couple of weeks ago where um, uh, generative AI dropped my database. Well, I mean, there's a whole raft of issues there. First of all, you should never be taking what generative AI generates without looking at it as you would the code you write yourself. And you should certainly go through a pull request, for example, to make sure there aren't any issues. And you should certainly never give AI access to a production database. That's completely insane. And you should never really give a developer access to a production database. Ideally, they'd be separated enough in the process not to need that access. So there's a whole raft of issues there which weren't really generative AI's fault. And like anything, you need to have levels of protection around your methodology for development to make sure you protect yourself from such issues. So educating, as I talked about, is you've got to get that knowledge to not be in that situation where you do those things, to know from first principles how things work. And as I said, the way you'd normally do that is an asset list, sit probably half a day with somebody, just go through, make sure they understand the principles behind it, as in understand the principles, not just expect them to look at the code and say that's the code and that's what it does, to actually understand that they've got the constructs behind how the code works, how it wires together, the principles of why you would do it, why have we done it this way. And that's key then to then allowing somebody to go away and learn it themselves. So what I did last night is I spent an hour or so and I created some MCP toolings to allow Claude Code to work in basically a teaching mode. So what we're going to do today is we're going to look at an API that we've looked at before. So it's this one we've used several demonstrations where we've taken a very early days API and we've used it for a whole raft of things to be able to demonstrate things that you can do with generative AI, most of them not with it writing code. And we're going to do stuff with that in Claude Code. So what that does have is it does have quite a few technologies that if you're writing an API, you'll need to know about. So this tooling that I've created, one of the things it can do, can go away and analyze a code base or multiple code bases, and it can create a syllabus of all the things that are relevant that somebody of whatever level, and you can specify the level of understanding. So you can start from nothing, which is what we're going to do with this demonstration today, to somebody who's had a bit of experience, but they may not have worked in certain technologies. And the AI has created a syllabus to work through with you in a teaching mode where it'll assist. And unless you explicitly ask it, it's not going to help you to do the thing. It's going to give you the assistance and guidance, anything you ask in terms of generating assets to go away and understand the thing, but it's going to encourage you to learn to understand it yourself, because that is key. And if you don't do that, you're not doing yourself any favors and you're going to have a problem. And your first problem you'll have is probably when you're having to do a coding test or something and you don't have access necessarily to that AI. It doesn't really matter whether, it's all about these coding tests that people give you are all about, do you understand the principles? That's all people are generally trying to figure out. They're not expecting you to create a work of art. So if you're in that situation, and if you've got an issue, you've got a problem, you've got some sort of stack trace, and you've got to understand what the problem is, you need to understand that yourself from first principles. So that's what we're going to do today. So we've got Claude Code. So let's get Claude Code up. So I've created a set of tools, one of which allows me to create syllabuses from a code base or multiple code bases. And the other one then allows a user to fire up the teaching assistant, essentially, to be able to do things. Now, if you go back, say, 15 months back into my LinkedIn, you'll see where before CLIs for generative AI existed, I'd started building them. And I'd created connectivity to Visual Studio using the interrupt NVDTE library to be able to allow the CLI to see what I'm doing in Visual Studio and to also interact with Visual Studio directly. And my thought process was, we're probably going to go to writing an IDE extension for this. Very quickly, I realized, actually, no, the way generative AI works, the CLI probably is going to be the differentiator. It's just when people start realizing that, people start building it. And that was completely the case. One of the other concepts I built in was the concept of extensibility. So I used a JSON format that allowed me to plug in what I called limbs to be able to give the generative AI the capabilities to go away and do things. Now we've got this extensibility pretty much in the same format of how I specified it, with MCP, which allows you to create MCP servers with a list of tools in there that can do things, which should basically allow the AI to have direct control over external compute. We've showed various things where we've written MCP servers from scratch to interact with databases, to interact with APIs, to interact with proxy servers, to interact with remote compute. So we've gone away and built another MCP server to be a teaching assistant. So we're going to solely focus on being in the CLI today. But with these toolings I've got that can go away and interact with Visual Studio, I can show you at a later date where when we're going through looking at files, it can go away and load the file in the IDE for you. So if you're a student, it probably works best in this case to although you can run the terminal inside an IDE, it probably makes sense to run the terminal in one window and one screen and the IDE in another, and then cross correlate. And then if the CLI has got the capability to control the IDE, it can take you directly to where you need to be looking rather than you trying to figure that out from the console, because it's a lot easier to see that from the IDE. And you'll see in some of these demonstrations, what I'm actually going to get it to do and what it's actually encouraged to do is, as it's going along, it's kind of encouraged, and I'm going to encourage it even more, to create basically MD files, markup files that sort of as we go away and talk about things, it'll go and sort of stick that information into an MD file with a lot more information around it that we can go away and browse at our leisure. So we're building up a history of our learnings as we're going along. And one of the other things it could do, I won't cover that today, is it can go away and assess you. So basically what this Claude Code syllabus learning tool has done is it's gone away and created a syllabus for this particular repo, where it's basically created a 20-day course that covers the whole aspect from nothing to knowing everything about how to develop in this particular code base, and also to focus on the sort of key constructs behind the methodology of how things are done, so that when you're looking at other code bases, you know what they are. But any sort of nuances about a code base, it will figure out for you, so that unlike Google, when you go away and look at somebody's written custom extensions or middleware or things, you need to go and figure that out because Google might not even know about it. This tooling can go away and understand how it's in this particular implementation to guide a student through. So what you can do is you can go away and get your student and you can go away and say, look, here's your teaching assistant. Go away and work through this syllabus at your own rate, because what you can do is you can interact with Claude Code as it's doing it. You can skip things if your level of awareness is higher than somebody else. You don't necessarily need to do the whole 20 days. And one of the things that it can do at the end of a module is it can go away and start asking you questions, not to trick you or it's basically to test your understanding. And what I want to get this focused on is, does the person understand the concepts behind it? Not necessarily the beautifulness of the code they write, but do they understand the key constructs about how this works? Because when you're learning, that's the most important thing. Everything else you can syntax and things you can worry about later. So that's clearly my kind of focus I've worked with a lot of developers that have come from nothing, and we've trained them up. So I do know how to do this because I've done this multiple times in my couple of decades, well, probably more than a couple of decades that I've been learning to become mildly incompetent at development. So what we're going to do is we're gonna start talking to Claude Code, um, and we'll just say, I want you to teach me using the learning tool. So it should go away and figure out it's got a learning tool, and it should figure out that the learning tool works with the syllabus, and it should go away and hunt in the current code file, code solution to see if a syllabus exists. And it's gone away and it's found a syllabus and it's switched into teaching mode, and it's now ready for us to go away and do things. So here we are. So it's gone away and analyze the syllabus. The key thing is it's inside the repository as well. So if we're going away, and we'll do a little bit of this, it can generate exercises for us to go away and do things. So we can start doing exercises, and it can see the Git changes that we're making as we're doing them. So if we get stuck, we can talk to Claude Code and ask it for more information. It's in a mode where it's told not to do the work for you. It's told to assist you to come to your own conclusion, but it can assist you if you get stuck. And what it can do is, after you've done something, it can go away and have a look at it and give you maybe some advice about things that you might want to do differently. Very, 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 very interactive. And it's not about Claude Code being used to write code. It's about Claude Code being used to help you to become a developer. And that's going to become the key issue that we're going to see shortly. And you see this a lot with computer science graduates, for example. They sort of courses generally, or maybe a few years out of date, and they don't necessarily teach people about industry. So that transition from a computer science degree to industry actually is quite difficult unless you've done a sandwich course, because you don't realize, you don't know what you don't know until you go away and start talking to people. They'll start talking to you about things that you've never heard about. And they're quite surprising things, like you may not have even heard of solid, for example. You may not have heard of unit testing. And these are key things that you need to know when you're working in industry. And this sort of tooling will go away and train you from nothing to being completely competent in the code base you're looking at. So all the key constructs around the code base, to make sure you understand those, but also to understand how this particular code base works. So it's recognized we want to use the teaching tool, and it's given us a very brief summary of what it's going to cover. So it's basically split it into 4 5-day modules: foundations, core patterns, CQRS, repository, deep dive, where it's going to take you through the code base. So split that into 5 days to walk you through the code base. It doesn't have to be 5 days. It's kind of, how much can somebody do in an hour or so a day? So it's like you could do more than that if you wanted to. And module 4, advanced topics, performance, security, error handling, all the rest of it. So let's have a little look at the full syllabus. So let's just see if it can show us that. So one of the key constructs about this is another thing. I haven't quite finished it yet, but I'm adding a memory to this. So as you're going along in a context, when you come out of that context, you won't remember anything that's happened, but it'll go away and give it a memory of the things that you've covered. That it'll reload as part of you going into Claude Code, so we can continue where it left off. So it's gone into a bit more detail. So let's go and get it. So we want a hard copy of what we're doing. So can you generate an MD file of that with more detail on each? Let's put much more detail, just to encourage it to be a bit more verbose. So it's going away to go and generate that. So this syllabus, you can obviously tweak yourself, or you can tweak in combination with Claude. That's fine, but I want the syllabus to know what we are covering as an MD. So it sees we're actually trying to get it to do something, and it's been told not to do that. So let's see if we can. I actually haven't seen this before, so let's see if we can try and persuade it to go away and do what we asked it. There we go. So we've won it over. We've used our charm, wit, and charisma to persuade it to go away. And now, of course, you can always go away and work around this if you needed to, but you're doing yourself no favors if you do. The whole point is that this is a tooling to allow you to learn what you're doing. And these are the kind of sort of methodologies that you see in this, even this week with OpenAI. They brought out the study mode. So they're realizing that actually this tooling is a problem when people get it to do all the work for them while they're watching Netflix. That's great up to a certain point until you need to use that knowledge and that knowledge isn't there. So you're not doing yourself any favors. So everyone's sort of considering how do we, and Claude have had for a while, it's more focused on higher education, but Anthropic for education, Claude for education, that's been around for a while. So everyone's looking at how we use these tools to assist in education. So yeah, it was being a little bit, it was being recalcitrant. And of course, I've shown you before, but again, this is all firing off hooks, and I've got my hook orchestrator running in the background, so I see everything that's going on. So if I needed to have a look at what somebody was doing as part of that, we can get those hooks to be emitted so we can see the full life cycle of what somebody's done to, as a human, understand if they're how well they're progressing, whether they're understanding what's going on. So it's now creating me a more detailed syllabus file. So let's let it generate that. We'll have a quick look at it. So basically something we can go away and look at to prepare ourselves. But we can go and email ourselves, print it out, and then so we know what we're going to be doing over the next 20 days. So there's quite a lot in this course, and it looks like it's it's decided to go. I did ask for it, to be fair. I did ask for it to be quite verbose, so it's only doing what I asked. My bad. So we'll let it finish generating that syllabus file, and then we'll go away and do a few more things. So it's going away. It'll be interesting if we can persuade it to generate markup files for other things that we might want in terms of exercises and things. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. So we'll let it go away and create what I'm expecting to be an opus magnus of coverage of what the syllabus involves. So it's definitely going to town on it. So we'll let it finish. Now, what you can do, of course, with Claude Code as well is you can interrupt it. So at any point, if it's going down the wrong road or you think it's not understood what you want to know about, you can stop it. You press the escape key, you can interject. It will pick up based on what you've already talked about, and it will carry on. So that's definitely something it can do. So it's still going at the moment. So we'll let it continue. We could have just looked at the syllabus file that it was driving off, to be honest, but it's now creating something more focused on the student so that they can go away and have a look at things in more detail, whereas the syllabus that the model has is more of a sort of much more ruthlessly lean list of things to cover. So we're definitely getting through some tokens. So we'll let it continue. I assume it can't do much more. I may be wrong. Here we go. Yep. Go away and do your stuff. So I'm hoping we've got a markup file. So here we are. So we've got a comprehensive overview of what we'll be covering in all the different modules. So it breaks it down by each day, and it's covered every single thing that's going to cover, and that's why it took so long. Probably is a bit more detail than I'd wanted it to cover, to be honest. But to be fair, if you ask for trouble, you'll generally get it. So this is something obviously you can take away and then decide what you want to learn about. So let's have a look at what was in the second module. So let's start with mediator and CQRS, which was in module 2, which I think was day 6. But oops. Let's see what it's got to say about that. So obviously, as it's coming back and generating information about those particular technologies, we can start having a conversation with it. So it's going away, describing how it works, and it's taking through a very simple flow there of how these things work. It's going away, looking in the code base to see how it's wired up in this particular code base so that it can talk with relevance of the code that exists, not the principles that may be deviated from in a particular code base. So it's telling me here, it's looking at one of the endpoints, it's looking at the create delivery command, and it's telling me it implements an iRequest type and what it does. So it tells me it maps the DTO, creates the entity, saves the database, returns the mapping. So it's now going away looking at the controller, which is the top level. So at this point, we can either start looking in the IDE, or we can get it to dump the code here, or we can get it to dump the code as markup. and then we can go and open the markup to look at it. Obviously, with the little extension I've got that links to Visual Studio, we can even get it to go away, and I'll show that maybe in a later demo. Can actually go up and open the relevant files in Visual Studio for you, so they're right in your face in the IDE where everything is more familiar. So it's talking about differences between commands and queries, talking about why they're good for separation of concerns, testability, pipeline behaviors like validation and logging. So, it's now guiding me into asking me questions. So that's something I'm not going to do because we don't really want to do that as part of this. But as I'm a student now, we're starting to get interactive, and it's asking me questions and I'm going to answer back, and then it's going to find flaws in my methodology, and it's going to help me to understand all these things until I understand all the things around Mediator or CQRS. And at the end, it will assess me on whether I actually have understood it to find out, oh, I don't think you've quite understood this. Let me explain it to you in a different way. Let's go away and let's see if it resists this. Give me an MD file and a link to resources, links and tips that cover all of this, so that I can look over later at home to learn. Seems to be a bit resistant to giving us anything in terms of actually doing anything because we've told it not to. So we've just encouraged it now to go away and do that. So say we're happy with this, and say we've gone through those few exercises, and it will get interactive, and we'll do 1 and we'll do 2 and we'll do 3, and then it will then assess our answers and help us through the answers, and then it will take us through to more advanced concepts. Don't think we need to go through this for the purpose of the demonstration. It's more than capable of doing that once it's got a decent syllabus. So let's go away and see if it can generate us a little bit of homework to take away, to go away and study this on our own. So what you can do at the end of each of these courses, you can get it to summarize it as an MD file. And in fact, it's encouraged to do that. So it will suggest that at certain aspects, so that you can freeze your knowledge. It's almost, instead of you taking notes, which distract you, you can go away and summarize everything that you've covered in a particular session as an MD file. So you've got a full history of it, using the style of language that you've communicated with the model at the time. So that it should hopefully make sense to you in the same style that notes would make sense to you. So let's assume we're doing that now. So we've gone through and covered Mediator and CQRS. We want to generate a summary of it, so we can go away and have a look at it to go away, take home and study in our own time. Again, it will be going away, doing a bit of research at this point. So I would expect that to take a little bit of a while to generate. So let's let it do that. Obviously, these short interactions we're doing would be very snappy. We'd be firing an answer back. It'll be asking another question, firing an answer back, be asking another question. That was me scrolling accidentally. So it's gone away and it's generated that MD. So let's have a look at it. So it's created a full guide to CQRS, Mediator, core concepts, patterns, how to get it installed, commands in detail, query handlers in detail, validation, how queries work with code examples in the style of the code base that we're currently looking at, validation. It's even talking about caching here. We could use caching potentially. So it's going into quite great depth about things that we could do. And it's got some good practices and bad practices. So it'll go away and give us some hints and tips of things to do to be able to understand this, along with code examples, so that we can go away and reference them. And at the end, it's generated us a nice synopsis of a whole load of resources. See Martin Fowler on there. Doesn't surprise me. He's on there. CQRS. So it's given us a whole set of resources we can go away and study on our own outside of being with the model. So maybe even you may not want to go interactive with it. You may not feel comfortable in that learning mode. Well, you can go away and get it to generate you this stuff to go away and read through at your leisure, completely focused on things related to the code base you're in. So one of the other things we can do, and then we'll wrap it up, I think, but you've got the idea here, is can you create me an exercise to create a new endpoint with hints of tips on screen and as an MD file so I can think about it tonight? I'm not going to think about it tonight, but don't tell. So at that point, obviously, it can set exercises or you can ask for them. It's kind of up to you how you want to do it. You may be one of these people, if you've been through a module, you might want to say, I want to do an exercise on it now. So in this code base, give me an exercise to do of something that makes sense in terms of the real world context of what the solution currently does, and go away and get me to go away and create it. And then what you can do as you create it, if you get stuck, the Claude Code can see what's in progress, what's not been committed, and then go away and help you out, go away and look at it, and go away and give you hints. It's, as you've seen, programmed not to do things for you. So it's gone away and created an activity for us. I'm assuming now it's going to create a little exercise file for us as well. So it's given us a little exercise to implement a cancel delivery feature. So it's given us a whole set of AC about the requirements for it. It's given us some hints on the task to do it without going too overboard, so that we're actually got to do it ourselves. It's given us some hints and tips that we can refer to if we get stuck. If we get really stuck, we can come back and we can say, hey, and because it's created, one of the reasons to create MD files is that, well, obviously when you come out of context, you lose the memory of what's happened. You can actually say, hey, load this MD file. You gave me this exercise. I couldn't get anywhere with it. Can we go through it? And it can go through and assist you interactively at that point. So it's going away, generating the exercise MD file. And as soon as that's done, I'll open it up, and it is done now. So it's given me a full exercise. So it's told me what the purpose of the exercise is. It's going to tell me what the functional requirements are. It's going to give me the step-by-step tasks that I need to do to go through and deliver this without going too in depth on the actual implementation. So it's given me clues on where I need to look. So again, if you were pretty confident, you could ignore this, or you can use it as a reference. It's given me a list of common mistakes to avoid, and it's given me some bonus challenges and also some hints. So if I get stuck, I can go to the hints in the exercise, and it's given me some hints with some examples of what to do. So it's then given me a little checklist about, before you think you've done it, have you covered all these things? Unit tests, have you tested it manually, validation implemented, all these kind of things. And then it's given me some questions to reflect upon. So as part of this, I could go away and, I don't need to talk to the model to do this, but if I talk to myself and read this as though it come from an experienced tutor, it's asking me a question: why did you choose to return what you did from the command? Where did you put the business logic? How did you do error handling, testing? What scenarios did you cover? What improvements would you consider you could do? So you can see at that point, we've got a fully interactive educator. I'm not going too interactive here because you don't want to see me talking to the model, doing things, but you get the gist of what's going on here. It can see the code base. It can see the syllabus. As it works with you, it builds up a knowledge of what you're doing. It's not a feature I've quite finished yet, but over time I'm getting it to basically create an internal memory of the things that you've covered, so that it knows things that you've understood well, things that you haven't understood well, and then where you are, so that when you go back into it, you've done day 6, let's go on to day 7 now. So that's really just to get you into it. It's not all about the code. All I ever hear about is generative AI is going to replace developers. Junior developers are never going to get into the industry. Well, actually, it's a threat and an opportunity. As a junior developer or a trainee, it gives you the capability to get into the industry by properly learning. If you choose not to embrace using this technology to properly learn, you're going to have a problem at a later date anyway, and that will probably be down to you. And it's not all about writing code. I've covered lots of examples recently where I've deliberately not been writing any code, using some of the best tooling that's out there, because I don't want people to get obsessed about it's all about generative AI writing code, which it can do very well under curated, experienced human guidance. So that's all I've really got for you today. So hope you found that useful, gives you some ideas of what you can do. And again, you can go away and you can go away and do some of these things yourself. MCPs and open standards. If you want to go away and potentially go away and create one of these for yourself, you can go away and do it. You can go away and create something that's completely sort of tailored to how you want it to work as well. So, and if you're struggling, you can get the generative AI to help you create the MCP server. So do you know what? It's not rocket science. I did it in about an hour. Okay, I'm fairly experienced. I know a lot about generative AI now, but it wasn't a particularly complicated task to get at least this level of functionality working. Getting the interactivity with Visual Studio is going to be a little bit more tricky, but I've already done that before 15 months ago. So at some point, I'll hoover that out, whack it in here, and we'll maybe do a second demonstration where we take this a lot further, maybe do some assessments, etc. So I just wanted to give some ideas about how generative AI can be used for education, can be used for good. It's not all evil. It is a threat, but it is also an opportunity, and it's a threat that's not going away. So you might as well embrace it if you want to be, for example, around in this industry. So have a great rest of your day. Look after yourself. Take care. Bye-bye for now. Bye-bye.